Hello, my name is Jack Howell, and as of July last year, I've been living with type 1 diabetes, which was obviously a life changing experience for myself. However, coming into my final year of university, I decided to change this perceived negative into a positive and make a documentary which will cover my journey with diabetes along with others who suffer from it as well. Let's start off with the first question, which is what is type 1 diabetes? About 10% of people with diabetes have type 1. It's got nothing to do with diet or lifestyle, it just happens. When you have type 1 diabetes, your body attacks the insulin producing cells in your pancreas, so you can't produce any insulin at all. And we all need insulin to live. It does an essential job. It allows the glucose in our bloodstream to enter our cells and fuel our bodies. When you have type 1 diabetes, your body still breaks down the carbohydrates from food and drink and turns it into glucose. But when the glucose enters your bloodstream, there's no insulin to allow it into your body's cells. Everyone with type 1 diabetes needs to take insulin. Some will inject it and others may use a pump. Managing type 1 diabetes can be challenging and stressful, from carb counting each meal or correcting a high or low blood glucose level. The aim of diabetes treatment is to keep blood sugar levels as near to normal as possible, but if you have diabetes, no matter how careful you are, you're likely to experience high blood sugar levels or low blood sugar levels at some point. Regularly having high blood sugar levels for long periods of time can result into permanent damage to parts of the body such as the eyes, nerves, kidneys and blood vessels. Therefore, with the help of blood glucose monitors, you can spot these levels early and can treat it by adjusting your insulin dose. A low blood sugar level, also called a hypo, is where the level of glucose in your blood drops too low. A low blood sugar level can be dangerous if it's not treated quickly, but you can usually treat it yourself. In order to treat a hypo, you need to have a sugary drink or a snack, like a small glass of a fizzy drink, or 4 to 5 jelly babies, or 3 to 6 glucose tablets. So hello and welcome to a day in the life of a type 1 diabetic featuring myself. But I thought I'd go through my daily routine, which includes insulin injections, applying a CGM monitor and then tracking my blood glucose levels throughout the day and things like that. So here we go. Moving on to another important stage of the day, which is the blood glucose monitors, which help keep track of your levels throughout the day. There are two ways of keeping track of these levels, such as a traditional finger pricking device or a CGM monitor, which stands for continuous glucose monitor. I currently use a CGM, which is called the Freestyle Libre 2, and that'll help keep track of my levels throughout the day. I'll show you how to apply this device now. Here I am now applying the CGM monitor to the back of my arm. It's just a simple task of applying a bit of pressure to the back of your arm with the sensor until you hear a click sound, and that means it's in your arm. These sensors are great for tracking your blood glucose levels throughout the day, as it just requires a simple scan to the back of your arm with your phone with the help of the app they provide you. I thought I'd move on to the insulin injections part of my routine, starting off with the long-acting insulin, which is this green pen here, which I'll inject into my leg every morning and evening, and that'll essentially keep my blood glucose levels ticking throughout the day when I'm not eating. Then moving on to the fast-acting insulin, which is this orange pen here, and I'll use it when I have food that has carbohydrates in them, and that'll help prevent any spikes after the meal. Okay, so here's another piece of kit that I use that I'd highly recommend to any other diabetics out there. It's a carb and calorie counter book, which allows you to find out the certain amount of carbohydrates that are in a certain meal that you want to eat. And I'll just show you now by opening it up. So here you have your mushroom risottos and stuff like that, your veggie lasagnas, and it gives you, as you can see, it gives you the carbs counts of each certain meal type and portion size. I find it's really helpful when it comes to finding out what the carbs are in a certain meal. You have your steaks, which normally don't have any carbs in them, so you don't have to worry about them. And at the back, if you're ever unsure, there's an index page which look at this, gives you any type of meal you're looking for, your spinach, your squash, your steaks, you know, your strawberries, your fruits, even your chicken tikka masalas and stuff like that. Basically anything you want food wise and you want to figure out the carbohydrates too. It's a really great piece of kit to have with you and to find out what the carbohydrates are. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, I'd recommend this to any type 1 diabetics out there. It's a really great piece of kit. So that was a short insight into what life of a type 1 diabetic is like, ranging from insulin injections and using a blood glucose monitor such as a CGM. So I hope you found that all interesting. There's much more that could be covered, but we'll leave it there for now. Approximately, there are over 400,000 people in the UK that live with type 1 diabetes, but there are also many communities online filled with fellow type 1 diabetics sharing their journeys and providing advice to each other. For example, with the use of these forums, I was able to get in contact with Grant Vicat, who self-published his own book, 50 Years of Malfunction. Grant was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at just 10 months old in 1959 and lived with the condition until 2013 when he underwent a kidney and pancreas transplant. Here is him reflecting back on how life was like with type 1 diabetes.
I think because I was in such a bad way when I left school to go to university, and I was read the Riot Act by an ophthalmologist who asked me to give him a daily account of exactly what I did, what I ate, and I told him, and I said, my father worked in the city, so I usually met him for lunch. And he said, okay, how much do you drink? And I said, well, 1 or 2 pints of Guinness at lunch at the most. I'm sure he didn't believe me. This is a typical. But uh, the thing that occurred to me was that all the way through my teenage years, especially, um, I pretty well denied having it. I remember one day I was eating some Nuttall's Mentos, and my brother said to me, "I don't think you should be doing that. Think about what might happen to you later on." And I just sort of sat there thinking, "You don't know. You have no idea."
Yeah.
Which is very unfair on him. Um, but it's something that fascinates me. Why? I suppose it's this age-old thing. Teenagers are going through vast hormonal changes. They don't want to be pushed around by anybody else except themselves.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is some sort of label.
Yeah, because you want to be, yeah, like, even though I'm diagnosed at 21, like, if I did when I was a teenager, I think it would have been hell because you just want to do, like, because at that age, you're going to be rebellious and go against it. So I would have been good at controlling it if I got it earlier.
So, like so many, I just ignored it. And of course, that would have done immense damage. I mean, damage had already started before I was 13. There were signs of protein.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what this man was saying. He just said, "You've got protein in your urine again." I should have said, "What the hell does that
I
mean?"
mean, yeah.
But
At that age, you're not, yeah, you don't really know. You expect the doctors to tell you.
no. Uh, but I also think that's quite important. I can't blame anybody. And why should I? On the in fact, exactly the reverse. I feel very grateful for everybody who's tried to get me where I am,
Yeah.
and still are. I went to Adam Brooks for a checkup last week, and I had the finest checkup I've had in all my life. There's damn it, perfect chemistry.
Yeah.
So I mean, that is another thing. How depending on what you read, depending on what your team is like, and how much they understand you, and so on. Um, I think that it's very easy to become very down
Yeah.
and to think, oh, all this is going to happen to me later in your life. Well, it doesn't have to. I know a lot of what happened to me was pretty well self brought on. I mean, yes, I've had both eyes lasered, but I can see with no glasses on. I can't read that. So I wear reading glasses. But, I'm incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
Apparently, my retina look like road maps of London. But they work.
Yeah.
And,
Matters,
I've
really.
had, yeah, I've had that for over 40 years. And I think I've just got used to the fact that there are scar marks and so on. So to go bird watching is not exactly advisable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not the be all and end all.
Again, with the help of the forums, I was able to get in contact with David, who's from Australia and was recently diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 40 years old. Here's my interview with him discussing our journeys with diabetes.
David, 41 years old, diagnosed 7 months ago with type 1 diabetes.
And how do you feel about it at the moment?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Like, obviously, it's a surprise originally, but it's like, it is what it is. I can't change it, so may as well roll with it.
Do you feel you've adjusted well to this change?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Pretty much. I think a lot of people were like surprised that, like, because when I was in the hospital and things like that, they like, do you want to see a psychologist and things like that and talk it through? And I'm like, well, it is what it is. Like, it's, yeah.
I remember my experience in hospital, and some of the nurses were in shock that I'd only been diagnosed at 21. Imagine for yourself at the age of 41. It must have been a surreal experience being diagnosed so late.
Yeah, it was a big shock. Yeah, because most type 1s are diagnosed in childhood. So at the time I was 40. So yeah, very big shock.
I imagine, like myself, you were first diagnosed with DKA.
Yeah, it's just
straight away. Like, yeah, no, like easy, just step into it. It's just nope, hospital straight.
Yeah.
I was in hospital for around 4 to 5 days.
So
yeah, about 3 nights.
Yeah.
I was in there for 3 nights and 4 days, although I wasn't I didn't feel unwell, which was the surprise.
Yeah, it was just a whirlwind of information being thrown at you. And then when you get discharged, you're kind of just left on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they just chuck everything at you. It's like, oh, this. It's like, well, hang on.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I need to adjust to this life-changing thing, basically.
So how did you discover the forum? Was it something you were advised to do? Or was it just something you found yourself? Because I know from my experience, the first thing I did was look up other people's experiences with this condition.
Yeah, basically along the same lines as you, because I don't know anyone else. Like, I don't have any friends that I could like talk about this stuff with or something like that. And like a lot of people, like in the forum, it's different talking to someone that has it and understands as opposed to talking to the diabetic nurse or the dietitian and the doctor and things that can just tell you this and you should be doing this. But it's the forum gives that perspective of someone else in the same situation.
Yeah, the forum has been very helpful in terms of getting into contact with others. Because like you said, we have no one around us who can relate to having this condition. And sometimes with this condition, it's not only a physical weight, but a mental weight. Because you always got to be switched on and be aware of how your body's feeling and then constantly checking your levels throughout the day. How have you found that?
Yeah, that's the fun thing, isn't it? Because like some of the symptoms for like lows and things like that, like could be headaches or something like that. There's a million reasons through the day you can have a headache. And now every time I get a headache or something, I think, oh, is it because my sugar's low? Is it because have I just not drunk enough water that day? Yeah, that's the tough part. But it's
you've always got to be switched on. So I understand why people who've had type 1 diabetes for a while say they experience burnout because it's so constant and there's no breaks at all. But like you said at the beginning, you just got to get on with it. So a huge thank you to Grant and David for allowing me to interview them about their experiences with type 1 diabetes. And thank you to anyone on the forums who helped make these interviews happen. I hope for anyone who's watched this documentary has found it insightful for not only about what the condition type 1 diabetes is and what it entails. For any other diabetics out there, remember, you're not alone and there are many communities out there ready to provide you support and advice. As for myself, I've been living with this condition for 7 months now and I'm still learning more and more about it each day. So once again, thanks for watching.